And if you're going to win souls, you've got to love souls. In spite of their meanness, in spite of the way they look, in spite of everything, you've got to seek to bring souls to Jesus Christ because you love them, because Jesus loved them, and because Jesus died for them, and you're trying to bring them to the Son of God.
The Bible says in Psalm 84:11, my last verse, for the Lord God is a sun and shield. The Lord will give grace and glory. No good thing will he withhold from them that walk uprightly. I've based my whole life on that it pays to serve God, and I believe that with all my heart.
God has given us a guidebook. God has given us a directional map. And that guidebook, that map, is the precious Word of God.
Listen, don't just go and sit in the pew. Find some way to serve, and serve as a family. Be a part of everything at church. And when you learn to love what God loves, your children will learn to love it as well.
Homes are not that spiritually strong. We're getting overtaken by the world quickly, but unfortunately, we're pumping all the sewage in. You know, we're letting the world in when that ought to be a haven.
If we could see the result of all that God does in every service where the Word of God is lifted and preached, we'd be dumbfounded and amazed at what God does.
It's just not about an attendance number on a board. How many people can you get coming faithfully to your church? The purpose of church is not for attendance. The purpose of church is for growth.
But if we look in the mirror, we're not perfect either. And the truth is, again, you can't change the other person. You can't get them saved. You can't change their faults, but God can. But you can change your own faults through God's help.
The Pharisees couldn't stand him, but they found out they couldn't stop him. Pilate couldn't find any fault in him. The witnesses couldn't get their testimonies to agree. Herod couldn't kill him. Death couldn't handle him. And the grave couldn't hold him. Yeah! That's my king.
If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves, come to the end of what's best for you, and start doing what's best for the sake of the Savior.
Welcome back to Sandy Creek Stirrings. I'm your host, Joshua Jimenez, here for the second part of our Tips for Teen Ministry to talk about working with teens in your church. Now, this episode series, and this will be the final installment. This will be the last part, only part 1 and part 2. But this is more geared towards those seeking to be a youth director, or maybe a youth director's wife, and they want to specifically work with the teens. Or maybe you help to work with the teenagers in your church. Or maybe you're a bivocational person who you're just in charge of working the teen ministry. Or maybe you are a full-time youth director at your church, and you're in charge of the youth ministry, specifically referring to today the teen ministry. And so we're going to give you some very practical things that will help you in working with teens. We talked about last week, the reality that so many youth directors do not make it very long as a youth director. We're talking 14 months. I think the average is put out like 14 months to 3 years, so it's like right at, but it's very few that actually make it to all the way to 3 years, so I think the average is sitting right at like 18 months. Not long, a year and a half. The average youth director stays as a youth director. Part of that, and let me chase a rabbit for just a moment. Part of the issue is that youth ministry or teen ministry or the youth director position at a lot of churches is viewed as a stepping stone to some sort of other ministry. Like, because the teenagers are just the teenagers, we can practice ministry on them, and if we mess up, it's okay. They are only teenagers. And the problem is, in the culture we've created, and by the way, I was guilty of this when I first got into it, is that we view youth director or the youth ministry as just a stepping stone rather than changing our philosophy and realizing that we are investing in the church. Because here's the reality, in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, they will be the church. They will be the church planners. They will be the pastors. They will be the pastors' wives. They will be the secretaries. They will be the teachers. They will be this and that. that you think, oh, we can't let you work with the adults because you need to practice on the teenagers, or we just say, well, the teenagers aren't important, so start with them. That cannot be the case. We really, across churches across America, we have to change our philosophy in how we view the teen ministry. I've seen too many youth directors, and at times I think we all fall prey to this, but I've seen too many youth directors who they're constantly just looking for the quote-unquote greener pastures. And can I just remind you, the pasture on the other side of the fence is greener because they put more manure on it. Maybe I'm the only one who found that as funny. We live in a rural area, so it makes sense to me. You're like in an urban city. You're like, I work in the inner city. What does that even mean? And but nonetheless, we've got to stop looking at this youth director position as God has me here for a short period of time. Maybe God's going to call you to the youth director position for the rest of your life. Now, that'd be interesting. I would be very interested to see you do that at 80. I think there's some realities we have to face at working with teens and being able to connect with them. So I think there is some things that would go into the conversation about age, but I think we got to stop viewing this as a one-year training ground, and then I can become a pastor, or then I can become this, or then I can become that. Why not just view it as this is the place God has you right now, so invest everything into it, quit worrying about the new opportunity. I think if we changed our philosophy and made the teenagers as important as something to invest in, then we would have more longevity in the youth director position. So I've been a youth director for, depending on how you count the years, as far as like a full-time like youth director, have a teen group and all that. My wife and I have been doing that for 8 years now, and we're excited about what we've been able to see as in that position, and we're excited about what the Lord is doing even today in our current youth group. So again, this episode is going to be more geared towards the youth directors. I do think, though, that there are a lot of different groups of people that can get things out of this. One, if you're a pastor listening today, I think you'll see, maybe you're looking for a youth director. I think these are some of the things you would want to find in a youth director. You're going to say, hey, do you do this? Or do you have plans for this? Have you thought about this? These would be some good questions to ask. This is something good for parents of teenagers to listen to. And here's the reason why. Because a lot of times the parents of the teens don't know everything that goes on behind the scenes. And sometimes they depending on what youth director they have, they think things can be just kind of thrown together haphazardly, and they're just like, I don't really know what he's doing. Are they really investing time? Are they really impacting my teens? Do they have a vision for my teens? Do they have a goal for the youth? I mean, is it really that important? And I think if you hear what a youth director does to truly invest in the life of your teenagers, you will view their influence as being important in the lives of your youth. I know this. One day when my children are in a youth group, whether it be mine, you never know, I might still be here doing this thing when my children are. I don't know how the Lord will work. Maybe He'll move me. Maybe He'll keep me here. Maybe I'll be a youth director till I'm 65. Whatever the Lord wants me to do is fine. But I will say this. I want a youth director for my teens, and here's the reason why. Because I know if they do it right, I know what an impact of a godly youth director and youth director's wife can have. What a godly impact they can have on my teenagers. I think it's important. So this podcast episode, or 2 parts, can really touch a lot of different things. So we're going to get right into it today. As always, if you have any questions, anything that I mentioned, any resources, email me. My email is joshua@sandycreekstirrings.com. Again, that email is joshua@sandycreekstirrings.com. And then last but not least, if you would, like, subscribe, follow, comment, leave a review on whatever platform you listen to this podcast on. It'd be a blessing. Just help other people to find this podcast. And hopefully, here's some of the tips and things that hopefully are helping you that you might be listening to today. Maybe you just turned me off. I don't know. But nonetheless, hopefully you find this episode helpful. And if you do that, other people will be able to find it. Last week, we shared 10 things. I'll give you 10 more today. We're going to run through them quickly. Last week, for review, go back and listen to the last episode. Ta-da! And review is very, very quick. We did say have a good understanding of what you want to teach the teens with the 6 years you have with them. Number 2, realize that establishing authority takes priority to friendship. Number 3, winning the hearts of your teenager is crucial. Number 4, get to know your youth on a personal level. Number 5, be vulnerable. Let them see the real you. Number 6, sarcasm, keep it to a minimum. Number 7, tell the parents and tell the teens, I am on your parents' side. Number 8, be organized and have a plan. Number 9, keep parents in the loop. Number 10, make trips and activities device-free, which obviously leads to the question that will open up today's point, which is point number 11, if you're following both parts, or point number 1 for today. But point number 11, if following in line, is, okay, if we make trips device-free, what are the teenagers going to do, and how are they going to have fun? Here we are. Point number 11, make road trips fun. You say, well, how do I do that? We have a 3, a 4, a 5, a 6, a 7, 8, 10 plus, 13 plus. I've done those drives myself with my youth group in a church van, 13 plus hours. You say, how do you make that fun for that length of time? I'll give you some very practical ideas. By the way, a lot of these things I have PDF printouts that I've made up. If you're interested in getting those, I can send those to you, and we can work on finding some ways to get those edited for you. And so email me about that. Again, email's joshua@sandycreekstirrings.com. But here's number 1, print scavenger hunts, right? You'd be surprised. Now, if you got a youth group and you haven't created a fun-loving culture, you're a stickler, you're very serious all the time, you haven't followed point number 5, be vulnerable, let them see the real you, then yeah, they may not find a scavenger hunt as fun. I think you'll be surprised. Here's what you do. Ready? You make it really simple. Get a prize. Find something your teenagers like, whether it be a candy bar, whether it be a box of Little Debbie's, maybe it be a candy of some type. You find something your teenagers really love, or maybe you tell them, hey, at the next stop, whoever wins, I'm going to buy you a drink. Now, the great thing is a scavenger hunt can last a long time depending on how you make it. All right, and there's a lot of different forms, a lot of different ways you can make a scavenger hunt. So, for instance, for us, we have adapted our scavenger hunt. I've got a couple different ones I use depending on what trip I'm going on. When I take the juniors to junior camp, we have about a 3.5-hour drive, and so I use a very basic, because I'm dealing with younger kids, I use a very basic scavenger hunt, and the way that works is it's just pictures. Just pictures. It'll have a picture of a cow. It'll have a picture of a car. It'll have a picture of this. It'll have a picture of that. It'll have just pictures, and all it does is it encourages them to look out the window, to talk, and you know the way a scavenger hunt works, right? You simply call out and say, hey, there's a cow, and nobody else can claim that cow. Hey, there's a river. Nobody else can call that river. Hey, there's an orange car. Nobody else can call that orange car. Hey, there's this. Hey, there's that. Hey, there's this. That's the way a scavenger hunt works. So for the juniors, and again, today isn't geared towards the juniors, but for the juniors, we just use a very basic, just a picture scavenger hunt. For the teens, we make it a little bit more in depth. Now, I don't want to spend all my time talking about scavenger hunts today, but let me just give you a little bit of input on the teens real quick, all right? So with the teens, we do a little bit more in depth. So I've got boxes, and I've got boxes that go 6 across, and they go, 7 down. So we've got 30 total boxes, and basically they're trying to get 4 in a row. All right, so they, as soon as they see something, they call it out, and they're trying to get 4 in a row, whether it be up and down. We don't count diagonal in our particular game. But they've got a whole bunch of stuff on this box. So they got a U-Haul truck, a dog in a car, someone on their phone, something that says the word faith, a lawyer billboard, a cross, a Hampton Inn, a Dunkin' Donuts. And I think you see where I'm going with all this. So what we do is we do that. We do 4 in a row, which is a scavenger hunt, and we do that to whatever our destination is. And then what I do after that is I print extra. I always have extra. But then on the back, I print on the reverse side 4 in a row to home. So we're returning. They get to play it on the way home too. Our teens love it. Our teams really enjoy it, and it gives them something to do. We also include, I give them a second handout. Now, I don't give this to them as soon as they get in the car. I pass it out kind of throughout the trip to keep things fresh and keep things new. I also have a game we play called License Plates or Car Manufacturers. I'm a great game namer. I come up with brilliant names, and so license plates is you try and find the license plates on cars of the most states that you can. All right, so the same idea as a scavenger hunt, except this time you're looking for states on license plates. So, Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, blah, blah, blah. You keep going, license plates. And then we've got car manufacturers, right? So we got Toyota, Jaguar, Honda, GMC, Chevy, Buick, Ford, Acura, Mercedes, Bentley. Yeah, we've got Bentley on there. And by the way, our teens have found a Bentley on one of these trips before. But anyway, that's kind of what we do for the car manufacturer. And then we have another one I call ridiculous, all right? So ridiculous. And so we, again, make road trips fun, print scavenger hunts, print license plate games, print car manufacturers games. How about this one? A list of riddles. All right, so we've got something called riddle-culous. Ridiculous, riddle-culous. I don't know if you got that or not. Basically, it's got on there 9 riddles, and they have to try and figure out the answer. Typically with this one, I'll set them a time limit. So you've got 20 minutes, you got 30 minutes, and you're going to work together. And typically what I do is I bunch them up in pairs. Whoever's sitting next to each other, you work with each other. Or in our van, we've got rows, and so typically I'll get a whole row, and they can work together. I tell them, be quiet, because this is great. Be quiet. Because if the other row hears you, they might take your answer. All right, so that's something we do, and it's phenomenal. Gets them quiet for about half an hour, and so we do riddles. Our teens love that as well. Then we play on road trips, and this is some more things you can do. We play some talkative games that get people talking, all right? So there's a bunch that we play. Our teens really, I don't understand why, but our teens, we introduced this game to them probably 3.5 years ago, 4 years ago now. They love to death. They play it every single road trip of their own accord. Fortunately, unfortunately, it is one of the, if my teenagers are listening today, please turn me off. It is one of the stupidest games. But anyway, everybody ends up dead. That's the way it always works. Somebody ends up dead in this game. But nonetheless, fortunately, unfortunately, starts with one person, works its way through the van. Here's how it works. Ready? Fortunately, we have a car ride, or we have a car to ride in. The next person will be like, well, unfortunately, our car got a flat tire. It goes to the next person. They say, fortunately, and they can come up with whatever they want. Fortunately, there's a tow truck right there. Then the next person, unfortunately, the tow truck driver is getting arrested. I can't talk today. It goes back and forth, and our teens will play that for a really long time, and I really don't know why. But they enjoy it. There's an idea for you. Here's a classic. You're going to know this one. I'm going on a picnic. All right, there we go. I'm going on a picnic, and I'm bringing applesauce. It goes to the next person. I'm going on a picnic. I'm bringing applesauce and bananas. All right, goes to the third person. I'm going on a picnic. I'm bringing applesauce, bananas, and Cheetos. And it keeps going down the line. Each person has to say what has been said before, and it keeps going till you get to Z. If somebody misses something, they can't get help, they are out of the game. They like to play, I'm thinking of an animal that starts with the letter, letter B. And they can ask yes or no questions. They only get one guess. So it goes person to person. They get a yes or no question, and then you can make a guess at any point in time. But if you guess wrong, you're out of the game. The ABC game. This is a great one. Great for families. Great for teen trips. We say go, and all you do is you can look at any sign, and you say A in whatever. A in start, B in, bison, C in, you're looking at signs and you're just trying to find the letters. And as soon as you call out a word, nobody else can take that letter from that word. It's very simple, very basic, but our teens enjoy it. And I mentioned this before earlier on. You have to learn as a youth director, as a youth director's wife, you have to learn to get off your phone. Hello. Get off your phone and be involved with your teenagers during the road trip. If you will be fun with them, or have fun with them, I guess would be more proper grammar. But if you will be the fun, that's even better. But if you will have fun with them, if you will sing with them and talk to them and play the games with them, That will make the road trips fun. Here's the last one I'll give you, and my teens love this, and I'll be honest with you, I kind of do too. We just have fun with it. I will announce from the van, fourth house on the right is going to be so-and-so's future home. The teens love it to death. You know, the one kid gets a shabby little, dump of a trailer that's, the roof is coming off, and the next kid gets a mansion, So it's like, hey, you get the fourth house on the left. We're counting 1, 2, 3. Oh, man, you stuck with that house. And then we're like, all right, so-and-so's future house is the 6th on the left, and we go 1, 2. And, oh, man, they get a gated mansion. I mean, it's just, they love doing that. And you can adapt that a lot of different ways. Fifth business on the right is so-and-so's future business. You can do that. Here's one we did last time. Our teens love this. Ready? Fourth road sign, fourth street. All right, it's got to be a street sign, name of a street. Fourth street sign on the whatever, the right, left, is so-and-so's future name. Future last name, that is. Oh, yeah. That got crazy. And so we had a great time with that. If you're in an area where all the streets are, 149th Avenue, it's not going to work. But we were in a great area, and it really worked out. So there's a lot of different games you can find. Go online, find them, because I already spent way too much time on this point. Again, if you have any questions, email me. You want any of those printouts, email me. Number 12, use curriculum in Sunday school, but use it sparingly. Okay? And there's a reason I say this. I like to use curriculum. All right, I like to buy a curriculum, and I can't use all curriculum. First of all, because of my standards. Not all curriculum is KJV only, and I'm not going to use it if it's not KJV only. All right, so part of it is my standards, but the other reason is because I can't. There's some guys who the way they write their material, I just can't teach it. It doesn't work for me. Their points don't make sense to me. There is a preacher, and I'm not going to say his name, but I love him to death. He is one of my favorite preachers. He is, I think, one of America's most anointed preachers to teens. He writes some Sunday school curriculum. It does not work for me. I don't know why. His style just does not fit mine. I can't adapt it. There's just no way I can change it to make it work for me. And I've learned that just teaching through some of his curriculum. But there are other men and other people and plenty of other curriculum who it's very easy for me to teach their lessons because it flows, it works with me. And that's the thing. As a youth director, you have to find what curriculum works for you and what curriculum does not work for you. I'm not going to go through a list of curriculum today. I will say that I do really enjoy the stuff from North Valley Publications, especially the series that are written by Brother Craig Burcham. He does a great job. His writing style really fits well with me and the way that I teach. So, I will buy some stuff from them. And I love the stuff that has not only the teacher's manual, but the student handbooks as well. And I also like that those series from North Valley are shorter. They're not going to take up a whole lot of time to go through them, just a few weeks. Then I've also written some of my other curriculum, the curriculum for myself, and written different series, and you'll do this as a youth director as well. Eventually, you'll create your own series, and you'll work through things, and it'll develop into a series. I did one on the cities of refuge. I turned that into a curriculum. In fact, I can send that entire thing over to you with student handouts as well that you have to print off. But here's what I said at the beginning. I said, use curriculum in Sunday school, but use it sparingly. And the reason why I said this is because you are the teacher, you're the youth director. You understand the needs, the trials, the troubles, the areas that your teenagers need help in better than the writer of the curriculum does for your individual teenagers. Now, I agree. You go get the Old Testament survey from North Valley Publications by Brother Burcham. Great series, one of my favorites, one of the favorites that our teens have been through. Every teen needs to know the things that are found in the Old Testament survey series. But I will say this, at some point your teenagers need help in things that they're going through and dealing with in their everyday lives, right? So as a youth director, as a pastor, as a teacher, as a preacher, your goal is not only just to give people information and teach them and build their knowledge and understanding of the Bible, but then also to be practical to help them in their daily lives. And here's what I find. If you use curriculum just all the time, you'll find that you're not meeting the needs of your teenagers as much because they'll be dealing with things And you need to talk about that. You need to help them with that. You say, what are some of those things? Go listen to the last part that we just did. Episode number, was it 306, I think? Tips for Teen Ministry Part 1. Go back and listen to that, because in that we talked about, number 1, things you should cover with your teenagers. Whether it be courting, whether it be dealing with anger, whether it be finding a spouse, whether it be dealing with friends and associations and things like that. Those are all important things, and they need to be dealt with, and they need to be handled. Someone once said that the best messages are the ones that meet the needs of your people. All right? And so you've got to learn. Yes, use curriculum. I love curriculum. We're about to buy a brand new curriculum for the beginning of the year. I'm very excited about trying out a brand new place. I've never used them before, so hopefully it goes well. But I'm excited to look at their material. I've looked through it, and I think it'll be great for us. I'm not willing to say anything about it yet, because I don't know if I'm willing to put my stamp of approval on it yet. But I do believe in curriculum, but I use it sparingly. I want to make sure I'm actually helping my teens with things they are going through in their lives. Number 13. Here's one that I've seen so often that needs to be fixed. Number 13. Start off Sunday school with something fun. Start off Sunday school with something fun. All right? Learn to open up Sunday school. If you get, for me, this is the way it works for me. Our Sunday school starts at 9:45 and we end at 10:30. Some guys don't get as long. I get it. I understand. For me, for my church, this is the way it works. I've got about 45 minutes. I will start off for the first, and I could use it for lesson time. I have a lot of stuff I want to say. I have no issue whatsoever teaching or preaching for 45 minutes. My church people can tell you that. But I know that they're coming in, they're tired, they probably stayed up way too late the night before, which parents, can I just say this? A plea to parents. Make your teenagers, you're like, well, they're teenagers. No. Make your teenagers, make your kids, make them go to bed at a decent time on Sunday. And all the youth directors say, amen. Right? There is no reason in the world for your teenager to be up by themselves alone till 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. Not even 1 o'clock. I mean, honestly. Tell your teenager to go to bed. They got a church day the next day. Put them in bed. Tell them to go to bed and get them in bed at a good time. You will find it will help their spirit and their attitude on Sunday mornings. It will fix it in a lot of ways. Fix it, all right? So put them to bed at a good time. When they get up, play music in the house. Good, godly, conservative Christian music. Play it in the house before you leave for church. And then you will find their attitudes fixed. So, again, that was 2 things. I'll give you 3 real quick. Ready? Number 1, put them to bed at a good time. Tell them to go to bed at a good time. Number 2, wake them up at a good time, because there's nothing worse than being rushed on a Sunday morning trying to get out the door. Number 3, play good, godly music in the house before leaving for church. It will change your Sundays. All the youth directors said amen. But nonetheless, when they come in, I recognize that, they probably did stay up too late. They're a little tired, maybe a little grumpy. We need to start off with something fun. So there's a lot of different things we will do. First of all, I buy a big bag of candy or a big bag of chocolate bars, the little mini chocolate bars. I buy those to throw out to kids as they, quote-unquote, win whatever we are doing. There's a lot of things you can do. Ready? Number 1, the classic sword drills. Sword drills. They're great. Love them. Teach kids to find things quickly in their Bible. Here's the issue, though. Here's the problem with sword drills if all you ever do is sword drills every single week. There are a lot of kids coming in who they're not in Christian school, they're not homeschooled, and if they're already in the teen group and they've never been to Sunday school before that, they probably don't know the books of the Bible in order. So let's be honest. If 50% of your teen group is church kids on Sunday school and 50% is bus kids, and you have some church kids who they don't know their Bibles in order, the books of the Bible in order, and then you haven't taken time to teach the bus kids the books of the Bible in order, they don't know them. And they're not going to try, they're not going to work hard because they know they're not going to win. Right? Now, I love sword drills. I think they're great, but I think we have to be honest with them. There are times where it just doesn't make sense. Now, we still do a regular rotation of games, and sword drills is in that. We love them. We do. We just do our best. It's great. But I think you need in your arsenal some other games to play with your teens on a Sunday school hour. And by the way, not everything is about having fun. This is more of a wake-up exercise to a degree. But we do sword drills, but there's got to be other things, all right? And here's another one. Here's a great one. My teens like this. We call it the Proverbs Challenge. Proverbs Challenge is very basic. I learned it from my youth director. Proverbs Challenge. It makes it so that everybody can play, even if you don't know the books of the Bible in order. Here's what it is. Everybody turns to the book of Proverbs. I read them a verse somewhere in the book of Proverbs. They have to tell me the chapter and the verse. Very simple. The larger the group, the quicker it goes. So this isn't going to work if you have like 2 teenagers in your group. I've been there, done that, right? I know what it's like to have 2 teenagers, 3 teenagers, 4 teenagers for plenty of time. All right, so you have to adapt these. This works better for a larger group. If you've got 4 or 5, you're good to go. This will be great for you, or more. But all you do is it's very simple, just like that. Now, I will say this as a word of warning to youth directors: find verses that start off with something different in the first couple words. Because when you say it, you're just going to, when you teach your teens how to play this, turn to the book of Proverbs. You tell me the chapter and the verse. I'm going to read you a verse, not tell you the chapter, not tell you the verse. You have to find it. All you've got to do, and I tell them this, all you got to do is just scan down the Bible as quick as you can, and you're going to be looking for the first 3 words, and then just verify to make sure it's the entire verse. That's why I choose verses that are different. For instance, there's a verse in there, we just did this one last week, rob not the poor because he is poor. There's not a whole lot of verses in Proverbs that start with the words, rob not, all right? So there are some, but not a lot. If you try and do the fool, the wise, they're going to be there all day, all right? So find verses that are a little bit different in the way they're read. And all you do is they tell you the chapter and verse, boom, you win, get a candy bar, get a piece of candy, get whatever you get. Proverbs Challenge is a great thing to do. If you find that it's going for a little long, and you have to understand, this is a little bit of a longer game to a degree. It does take a little bit more time than a sword drill, but it won't take very long depending on the size of your group. But I will say this, if it's gone on past 60 seconds, past 90 seconds, then what I will do is I'll say it's after chapter 10, or it's before chapter 15, and I'll shorten it up so that way they have a better idea of where they're looking. Here's another one, Bible trivia. Put your hands down in your lap. When I say go, first person to raise their hand gets to answer the question, ask Bible trivia questions. Easy ones, hard ones, in between. We've done this one a few times. I don't know if it's my personal favorite. My teens seem to enjoy it. We throw it in there every now and then just to kind of switch it up. It's called Chapter Challenge. Very simple. We'll take a book like Nehemiah. I'll say, okay, here we are, chapter 1 and chapter 2. How many sons did so-and-so have? And they're scanning through trying to find that name and then telling me how many sons they have. And what it does is it's not Bible trivia. They don't have to know it in their head. They just have to scan and look for it, so it includes everybody. And then we do this one as well, On This Day Trivia. There's a website, and I'm not saying that I necessarily recommend everything on the website, but there is a website called On This Day Trivia, and if I'm correct, it is onthisday.com. All right, onthisday.com. And basically what I will do is I will go there on a Sunday morning, and I will go to their historical events. I'll click their history, and basically it's got a listing of all the things that have happened on history on that day. And so I'll click the actual historical events button. It'll break it down, and it'll give me all kinds of things that have happened on this day. All right, so what I'll do is, like, for instance, right now, today is when I'm recording November 21st, just a day before this is going to be released. And so today, November 21st, 1787. The first question I ask off of this, who can tell me today's date? All right, so, but I'll say November 21st, 1787, future U.S. President Andrew Jackson. He was admitted to the bar as a lawyer. I'm going to take guesses from everybody. What age was he? All right, so they'll go around. Well, he was this, he was that. And if a kid hits it on the head, they automatically win. All right, but then the kid who is ever is closest. The answer, by the way, is age 20. All right, so these are the ways I play it. And I try to find a lot of questions where I can give them, like, each kid can get a guess. All right, so there was a major forest fire, and it lasted how many days? Closest guess without going over. We'll do that for On This Day Trivia. Number 14, have trips and activities for your teens. All right, this is important. I would encourage you to really consider having monthly activities for your teenagers. You are the youth director. you need to spend time with them more than a Sunday and a Wednesday. They need to see you outside of church. They need to see you. They need to have, every teenager should have been to your house at least once for an activity and done something with you and your wife. You know, you need to take your teen boys to the basketball court, and you need to take your teen ladies to a brunch place, and you need to have coffee, and you need to do this. Enjoy time with them. So have trips and have activities. Have big activities and big trips. Have small activities and small trips. Go to conferences. Go to retreats. Go on preaching trips. Have them into your home, out and about. Here's one we do quite frequently. We try to do this a lot of months throughout the year. The most optimal thing to do is if I can do an activity once a month and then do what we call a snack once a month. And snack is SNAC. It's an acronym, stands for Sunday night after church. We go to a restaurant, everybody pays for their own meal, and we just have time. I tell the parents, hey, you're more than welcome to come along. I'm going to try and get all the teenagers to sit at one table for fellowship, and I typically get a lot of parents that come, and the parents will fellowship together as well. Great thing, great idea. So big trips, big activities, small trips, small activities, you need to be spending time with your teens. Number 15, and I'm going to speak directly to the youth director men for a minute. Be careful about interaction with the young ladies. Be careful about interaction with the young ladies. Okay? Keep your distance. Use your wife to counsel and help them. I think it goes without saying, hands off. Don't touch them. Don't do nothing. I'll be honest with you, my young ladies that come to church that are teenagers in my group, I don't ever extend my hand to shake their hand. Now, if they come to church during a normal time and they extend their hand to me to shake my hand, I will shake their hand. But otherwise, I don't even do that. And I know for some that's like, whoa, that's over the top. I want to be very, very careful about the interaction I have with the young ladies. All right, not because I fear them and not because they fear me, but we've talked about how to keep your ministry pure. Go to sandycreekstirrings.com, click the episode button, type in men ministry pure. In the episode search engine, you'll find that episode, and it goes through detailed steps, detailed plan for how to keep your ministry pure and how to keep your ministry not accusation-proof, because I think accusations will come anyway. Right? That's the nature of an accusation. An accusation could be true, could be false, but I will say that it proofs your ministry for the accusation, meaning that people will know because of the standards I set in place that that's just impossible. That could not have happened, and here's the reason why, because of all these standards and all these barriers and all these walls and all these fences he has in place. Now, there is a fine line between being so distant that your teen girls don't know you as a youth director, all right? So they need to know you. They need to see you having fun. They need to see all those things. But as far as like counseling, personal time, things of that sort, we're very hands-off. I'm letting my wife handle that. That's my wife's position. Now, I will say there are times, even at a function we had this past year, where a young lady was dealing with some troubles, and she was talking to my wife, and my wife brought her to me, and we all sat down together, us three. My wife sat by her, I sat on this side, and we just counseled through some things, and we helped her. Those are all things I can do, but my wife is going to be ever present in those meetings, and I'm hands off. You say, well, what about a young lady who has, we have a great connection with, she's been in our youth group. She's been, she was in junior church with us. She was in youth group. I'll put it this way. I'll give you a story. The first bus kids we ever picked up at Victory Springs, a young lady there, she was in junior church from the day she started coming. So my wife and I have known her through ministry, have spent hours and hours and hours and hours of time on activities, and having this young lady and her brother over to our house. We know them very, very well, and they're very close. They're very dear to us. They're really the first teens we ever really had in the teen group, very special to us. When she left, she went off to go to college. Everybody's going through and, giving her a hug and shaking her hand. And so, I went through the line, and my wife and I together, we shook her hand, and my wife gave her a hug. And here's what would have been completely kind of perceived as a cultural norm. A lot of people wouldn't have a problem with, I would have a problem with it, is for me to have given that young lady a hug. Now, I know some of you out there listening today, but like you've known her for so long, she's almost like a daughter to you and your wife, she's so close to y'all, just give her a hug, you love her. No, I don't. I want to make sure that I keep my distance. Now, my wife and I were standing there talking to her, and I said, I want you to know, we are so proud of you, and we love you so much, and we are so excited. Every time I talk, I use we. All right? We. My pastor one time had me, called me to the pulpit. At the spur of the moment, did not know this was going to happen. And he wanted me, one of our young ladies was graduating from college, and she was going to be moving to a new place to begin working as a teacher. And so she was leaving. This was her last service, and he wanted me to get up and tell how special this young lady was and what a wonderful job she was doing and how we're so proud of her. And I could have done that. There's no issue with that. And really, it would have been fine. But here's what I'm trying to say. I try to make sure I go the extra mile in making sure that people know, and there are very clear, distinctive lines in my ministry that show that I'm very careful about the way that I interact with young ladies. So here's what I did. Hopped up to the pulpit. Not literally, I walked up, but I didn't hop. And but I called my wife. I said, if I could I have my wife join me? My wife works so closely with me as a youth director. I could not do what I do without my wife. And, I complimented my wife the whole time she's walking up here. She gets up here. I put my arm around my wife, and I said this, we are so proud of this young lady. We had the opportunity to have her in our teen group. We had the opportunity to spend time with her. We are so proud of her, and we have been able to talk to her and see her grow. Everything was we, and it presented this thing that I do this with my wife, and there are certain boundaries. You have to be careful. In the day and age we live in, gentlemen, you have to be careful about interaction with young ladies. Now, again, I said there's a fine line there because you need the young ladies. They're just as much a part of your ministry as the young men. And yes, those young ladies need to know that as a youth director, you care about them. As a youth director, you want to see them succeed. As a youth director, you want to see them grow for the Lord and do great things. And you, as a youth director, are there for them. Yes, they need to know that. And I've found that line for my ministry where my young ladies, you ask them in the youth group, I guarantee you they know that I care about them. They know that I love them. They also know that Brother Josh is very careful about the interaction he has with the young ladies, and Miss Tabitha is really the focal point of their counsel and leadership within the youth ministry. Number 16, here we go. This is for everybody, getting back to it. Encourage vision. Encourage vision. This, to me, seems to be the most lacking in the area of today's teens. What do you want to do when you grow up? What do you want to do when you graduate? I don't know. All right, you don't know. Great. You got 2 years before you graduate anyway. You got plenty of time. But what do like if you could do anything in the world, let's talk crazy talk. If you could do anything in the world, what would you want to do? Zookeeper? They're a little bit older than zookeeper, some of them at this point. And or maybe they still want to be a zookeeper, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? And they're like, I want to be this, I want to be that. Start having conversations with them and encourage them to think big for God. All right? Encourage them to start thinking big and to have a vision for their lives. And a great way you can do this, teach on having a vision. Teach practically on how to develop a vision for your life. Guys, in your file as a youth director, you need to have a lesson or a lesson series on developing a vision as a teenager, on finding and knowing the will of God. Those are so vital in these years of a teenager. Number 17. Realize the hurdles of teen ministry. There will be some hurdles, there will be some burdens, there will be some things that you have to work through. You say, what is the number one hurdle you will face in youth ministry? Ready? Ask any veteran youth director. Number one, the parents. That's right. And if I have, I know of at least, if I'm correct, and they'll let me know. I know they listen to the last part, but I have at least one parent who listens to this podcast, and they listen to, I think, almost every episode, and they're probably listening today, and they're like, what? I was never a problem. I will say this, and I'm not trying to say it because I know I have people listening, but I have really not had to deal with this a whole lot here at Victory Springs. I have had the pleasure of really having some wonderful parents at Victory Springs, and I'm not saying that to butter anybody up. I'm not saying anything like that. All I'm trying to say is I know this is the case, and I've had to deal with some of these hurdles as well, but I have been blessed with wonderful parents so far at Victory Springs who are really supportive, who are really helpful. But the parents are still the number one hurdle. Whether it be drop standards, hypocrisy in the home, a failure to be faithful, because let's be honest, you got a 14-year-old teenager, they can't just say, well, Mom, I'm going to Sunday night church, I'm going to Sunday school, whether you like it or not. They can't drive themselves. So sometimes you'll have teenagers miss church, Sunday school, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. They'll miss something. It's not their fault. It's their parents' fault. Parents are the number one hurdle. And again, so I have been tremendously blessed with wonderful parents here at VSIBC, and it's not something that I'm currently facing, but it is something that I have dealt with in the past, and I will deal with moving forward. There will be some who give you some problems, and you have to learn how to interact with the parents. And I talked about this when telling the teenagers that I'm on the parent's side. There are certain times where I'll have a meeting with a parent, I'll take them out to dinner, and I'll talk to them about some certain things to try and help them help me and me help them, all right, as far as in regards to their teens. The other thing you have to realize, here's some other hurdles kind of just in little bullet points. There will be some teens who make it, and there will be others who won't. I think you need to realize that. Your youth director, maybe it's been in here for 6 months, maybe you're thinking about it. Let me just break the news to you. Not every teenager is going to make it. And yes, it's sad. And yes, it hurts. And yes, you'll at times feel like, what am I even doing? But you need to know it. And the ones who make it are such an encouragement and such a blessing, and you're excited about what they're doing. But you have to know there will be others who won't. There will be some who you will never be able to get completely involved. Doesn't matter how much you talk to them, doesn't matter how much you visit them, doesn't matter how much you get them a card or buy them a box of ice cream. You're just never going to be able to get them as involved as some of your other faithful core teenagers. There will be some who it feels like you're just banging your head against a wall, and honestly, you might be. You might be. All right? There will be some, and I'm just giving you some thoughts. There will be some who you need to realize it's okay to let them go. Now, I know that's difficult to hear and maybe shocking to some, but you have to realize you've been given a short amount of time with all of these teenagers. And if you're not careful, you will chase the backslid, rebellious teenager who's not faithful, who's not interested, and you'll chase them so much to try and get them involved. And I think you should. You put in all the effort. But you chase them so much that you miss out on important, critical, and focused time with the teens who are making it and who are going to make it. So you have to realize that there are times where it's okay to let somebody go. And I'm not saying just never do anything with them, don't ever reach out to them anymore. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, but you don't take away time that your other teens need to focus all the time and energy on this. Sometimes you have to let some go. There's a reason the Bible talks about not casting your pearls before the swine. And that's really going to apply to this next point, is that there are some scorners who you just don't need to waste your time on. There are some teens who they come in with a rebellious and a scorning attitude. You go read in Proverbs everything that has to talk about the scorner. Smite the scorner, cast out the scorner. I'm not saying go hit any teenagers, by the way. There's an application for what that's talking about. But all the things it talks about the scorner, cast out the scorner, and strife will cease. If you spend so much time trying to correct, trying to grow, trying to do whatever to that scorner, all you're doing is you're wasting your time, you're casting your pearls before the swine. I didn't say it, the Bible said it, go read it. Understand this from Proverbs, the only way to fix a scorner is to cast them out. And if you don't at some point, you will ruin the rest of your youth. Number 18, push your teens to their pastor. You heard me. Push your teens to their pastor. You know my thing. I've talked about it before. I've talked about the issue with it in pastoring. Gift versus office. Look at pastor, gift versus office from our Pastor 101 series on sandycreekstirrings.com. Go to the episodes page, click the search button, and you will find that episode, Pastor 101, Gift versus Office. In that episode, I talked about why it is wrong for youth directors to call themselves a youth pastor. Now, again, I'll say this. I don't have a major issue with guys who call themselves youth pastors. I have great friends, wonderful friends. I love them. We never talk about it. It's never something I'm bringing up. It's never something like, have you thought about, this is just something I believe to be biblical, and I think you give ammo to the other side. People like Rick Warren, you give ammo to their side when you call yourself a youth pastor. But nonetheless, I understand for some this is just going to be viewed as a pet peeve, and that's all right. I don't have a big issue as far as like, you do it. I get it. It's a cultural thing. I get it. I still don't think it's right. But nonetheless, I will say this. You are not the pastor of the church. You're not even the pastor of that youth group. Their pastor is their pastor. And they need, as teenagers, to get to know their pastor. So again, you're put into this position where you are counseling them, and you're teaching them, and you're visiting them, and you're caring for them as a sheep in a flock, kind of the way that a pastor does. But you're not the pastor. You do all those things, but you are not the pastor. But when they make a big decision, say, hey, you know who you need to tell? You need to tell preacher. You need to tell pastor. They win a big victory in their lives. You need to tell pastor about that. They're going through something really, really hard. Man, I think it'd be a good idea if you talked with preacher and his wife about that. They won't be in your youth group forever. And helping them to build a strong connection to their pastor, so that way when they get out of the youth group, they're going and they're counseling with their pastor, and they have a good connection with him, and they know who he is, and they have a relationship with him and his wife. Building that connection is the sign of a truly great youth director. Number 19, push your teens to their parents. Push your teens to their parents. Now, everything I mentioned about pushing them to their pastor is going to apply to their parents. Now, there are some nuances to consider, especially if the teen that we're considering, their parents don't come to church. But the Holy Spirit will give you the wisdom in those situations, so I'm not going to tackle all of them. But you need to be pushing your teens to their parents. Encourage them to honor their mom and dad. Encourage them to get to have a relationship with their mom and dad. Encourage them that they will look back on these years and they will regret it if they don't fix some things. Push them to their parents. And then number 20, and we're done. Number 20. Maybe one of the most overlooked points, overlooked tips in teen ministry. Number 20. Be you. Be you. You don't have to be youth director so-and-so who is amazing and he has 300 teens in his youth group. He's got 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 125 teens in his youth group. And man, he's amazing. He's on fire. He's electric. He's preaching at every conference. I mean, it's just awesome. Who doesn't want to be youth director so-and-so? God doesn't want you to be youth director so-and-so. He wants you to be you. God didn't create clones of so-and-so. He wants you to be you. And you say, well, isn't this kind of weird you're saying this? You just gave us 20 things. Aren't you wanting us to do all these things? I will say this. You counsel and you get ideas and be a dreamer, be a visionary. Go talk to other youth directors and always be looking for things to make you as a youth director better. But at the end of the day, I don't want you to take all these things and just replicate what I do in my ministry. I said at the beginning in the last episode, you take these things and you adapt them to however fits your ministry and your style. But just be you. God called you to this ministry. God called you to lead this group. God brought these teens to your group. They're not over at so-and-so's church. They're not 13 hours away in so-and-so's ministry. They are here. God brought them to you, and he thought that you would be the right youth director for them. So be yourself. Allow God to take the steering wheel of your life and really control and use you. Quit trying to be somebody else. Just be you. Just be you. At the end of the day, I've given some things in this episode and the last episode that I hope are a real help to you. But again, I don't want you to replicate my ministry. Take these things, adapt them, make them fit to whatever works for you and your church. You don't have to have the same activities, the same trips, the same ideas, the same games as me. But you find every youth director you can that has been in this thing for a little while. You get all the insight and all the wisdom you can get from them and fit those tidbits and nuggets of wisdom into your ministry to help you. But at the end of the day, just be you. And yes, there are times when you need to grow you. And yes, there are times when you need to change you. And yes, there are times when you need to adjust your way of thinking. And yes, there are times where you need to spank you and say, you know what, you need to do a better job at this. You need to work harder at this. Yes, all those things. But quit trying to be somebody else. You don't have to talk the way they do, have the energy they do, have the charisma they do. Just be you. God put you here, so just be you. Youth director's wife, don't give up. Don't quit. Stay faithful. Let's beat the quote-unquote industry standard of 18 months. Can we not go a little bit more for the cause of Christ? Parents of teenagers, be faithful. One of the best things you can ever do is just be faithful. I'll say this as well. Support the vision. If you've got a good youth director, by the way, they are few and far between, the good ones. I'm not talking about placeholders. I'm talking about good youth directors who invest. Can I say this? One of the best things you can ever do for your teen and for your church and for you as a parent is to get behind the vision of your youth director and have your teens there for every single thing. It'll help more than you ever realize. So there's 20 things with a few nice plump rabbits that we chased inside of those 20 things between part 1 and part 2. I hope these were a help to you. Again, if you're looking for any of the things that I mentioned as a lesson, any of the games and the scavenger hunts and things of that sort that I talked about, any of the curriculum that I talked about, if you have any questions, anything that you have a question about, or maybe you just want to talk a little bit more about youth director and some things that I've learned over the past 8 years, then you can always email me. Again, my email is joshua@sandycreekstirrings.com, joshua@sandycreekstirrings.com, or you want to see us in person, I'd love to meet you as well. You can always visit us at Victory Springs Independent Baptist Church every Wednesday and Sunday, and we would love to have you give us a visit. All right, so I hope you enjoyed today's episode and looking forward to the next one, but we don't have an episode next week because it's Thanksgiving. Next week on a Thursday, we release our episodes on Friday, but I'm going to take the week and spend time with my family, so we're not going to worry about releasing an episode on Friday. But we'll catch you the Friday after that, which will be, are you ready for this? That will be December the 6th. All right, December the 6th, we'll release our next episode of Sandy Creek Stirrings. Hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving together. Have a great time as a family. Looking forward when we get into our next episode. You know what's going to happen? We're going to feature some Christmas music at the end of next episode. You won't want to miss that. We'll tell you where you can get some great Christmas music CDs for the holiday season. All right, so we'll catch you back then next time. Until next time, keep looking up and keep stirred up for the cause of Christ.